Dennis Rader. For 17 years, the BTK killer terrorized Wichita, Kansas. BTK stood for bind, torture, kill, and that was exactly what he did to 10 victims between 1974 and 1991. Then he disappeared. The case went cold. Police had almost nothing. In 2004, Rader started communicating with investigators again. He sent letters, packages, even a cereal box. He wanted credit. He wanted to be known. Then he made his mistake. He sent a floppy disk to a local TV station. Inside the disk was a deleted file. The metadata on that file contained one word: Christ Lutheran Church. Investigators searched the church's database. They found a member named Dennis Rader. He was arrested on February 25, 2005. He had been the church's elected council president for years. He pled guilty to 10 counts of murder and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms. Ted Bundy. By the summer of 1975, Ted Bundy had already killed dozens of women across multiple states. He was careful. He changed his appearance. He moved between Utah, Colorado, and Washington, leaving investigators with no clear pattern. On August 16, 1975, a police officer in Granger, Utah, spotted a Volkswagen Beetle driving slowly through a residential neighborhood at 2:30 in the morning with its lights off. The officer ran the plates. The car belonged to Ted Bundy. He pulled him over. Inside the car, he found a ski mask, a crowbar, handcuffs, and rope. Bundy claimed they were just tools. The officer wasn't convinced. Weeks later, a victim identified Bundy in a lineup. The handcuffs matched marks found on a previous victim. He was convicted of kidnapping. While awaiting trial for murder, he escaped twice. He was recaptured for the last time in February 1978 in Pensacola, Florida, again during a routine traffic stop. He was executed in 1989. John Edward Robinson was the first documented serial killer to use the internet to find his victims. Throughout the 1990s, he operated on BDSM forums under the username Slave Master, luring women with promises of a relationship and a job. At least 8 women disappeared after meeting him. He kept their bodies in barrels on his rural property in Kansas. For years, he operated without suspicion. He had a wife, children, a normal life on the surface. His mistake was simple. On one of the forums, he used the real name of one of his victims, Isabel Lewicka, as part of a fake profile. Her family had reported her missing. When investigators cross-referenced the name with online activity, it led them to Robinson. They searched his property in June 2000. They found 5 barrels. Inside were the bodies of 5 women. He was convicted in 2003 and sentenced to death. He is currently on death row in Kansas. Gary Ridgway killed at least 49 women in the Seattle area throughout the 1980s and 1990s. He was the most prolific convicted serial killer in American history. Police had a suspect early. In 1984, Ridgway failed a polygraph test. In 1987, he was brought in for questioning, and investigators collected a saliva sample. But the technology to analyze it properly didn't exist yet. The sample was stored in an evidence archive and forgotten for 14 years. In 2001, the King County Sheriff's Office began applying new DNA matching techniques to old evidence from the Green River case. They pulled the 1987 sample out of storage. It matched DNA found on 3 victims. Ridgway was arrested on November 30, 2001. During his confession, he said he had killed so many women he had trouble keeping count. He pled guilty to 49 murders in exchange for a life without parole. Tsutomu Miyazaki. Between 1988 and 1989, Tsutomu Miyazaki abducted and murdered 4 girls in the Tokyo area, all between the ages of 4 and 7. He was meticulous. He left no useful evidence at the crime scenes. He sent taunting letters to the victims' families. Police had no suspects. His capture had nothing to do with detective work. On July 23, 1989, Miyazaki was in a park with a young girl. The girl's father saw him and confronted him. Miyazaki ran, but he had left his car at the scene. Instead of disappearing, he came back to retrieve it. The father was still there. He held Miyazaki until police arrived.
When investigators searched his apartment, they found 5,763 videotapes, photographs of his victims, and their remains. He was convicted in 1997 and executed in 2008. Lonnie Franklin Jr. For over 20 years, the grim sleeper terrorized South Los Angeles. He killed at least 10 women between 1985 and 2007, then disappeared for 14 years in the middle of his spree, which is how he got the name. Investigators had his DNA from the crime scenes. They had a profile. They had no match. In 2008, Lonnie Franklin's son, Christopher, was arrested for a felony weapons charge. Under California law, anyone arrested for a felony had their DNA added to the state database. Christopher's DNA was entered into the system. It came back as a familial match to the grim sleeper profile. Not a direct match, but close enough to indicate a blood relative. Investigators identified Lonnie Franklin Sr. as the most likely candidate. To confirm, an undercover officer collected a partial pizza and some silverware that Franklin had touched at a restaurant. The DNA matched. He was arrested in July 2010, convicted in 2016, and sentenced to death. Joseph James DeAngelo committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and over 100 burglaries across California between 1974 and 1986. Then he vanished. He retired. He became a grandfather. He lived in a quiet suburb of Sacramento. For 30 years, one of the most wanted criminals in American history mowed his lawn and went to the supermarket while the case stayed officially open. In 2017, investigators uploaded the Golden State Killer's crime scene DNA to GED Match, a free genealogy website used by people tracing their family history. The DNA matched distant relatives of DeAngelo, cousins and second cousins who had submitted their own DNA voluntarily, not knowing what it would lead to. Investigators built a family tree from those matches. Over months of research, they narrowed the list to one candidate, Joseph James DeAngelo. To confirm, they collected DNA from a discarded item he had left outside his home. It matched the crime scene profile exactly. He was arrested on April 24, 2018. He pled guilty to 13 murders in 2020 and was sentenced to life without parole. Larry Jean Bell. In 1985, 9-year-old Shari Smith was abducted from her family's driveway in South Carolina. Her killer called the family repeatedly, taunting them, describing what he had done. He was confident the calls couldn't be traced. At the time, tracing a call required the caller to stay on the line for a significant amount of time, but investigators were patient. During one call, they kept the caller talking long enough. The call was traced to a payphone. Witnesses near the payphone gave a description. The description matched a man named Larry Jean Bell, a former electrical worker who had done maintenance on the Smith family's property. He was arrested in June 1985. During his trial, he claimed to be possessed by an evil entity called Larry Jean Bell. He was convicted and executed in 1996. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which case shocked you the most, or which mistake seemed the most ridiculous. See you in the next case.